Welcome, Pat. It's good to have you on the webinar.
Good to be here. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for taking the time to, sit down and talk about the farm and everything else. I'm really excited. As you can see, I got your selection of cheeses that we can try today. And I have a little bit of pairing over here. So, for my end, I'm going to have a lot of little fun here playing with your cheese.
Awesome. So Promontory, when we first started, Tim and I, we knew nothing about cheese other than we liked it. And so we went up to Utah State and they helped us develop the recipe for our base cheese, which we call Promontory. And its best description of this cheese would be an Irish style cheddar. And the reason it's an Irish cheddar is because it has lots of extra fat in there because of the Jersey cow milk that we have. So Promontory is our base cheese, and it is the base from which we do all of our cheeses. And as you can see there in the middle at the bottom, the awards that we've won, Promontory is one of our most award-winning cheeses. A lot of people don't know it and are not as familiar with it as some of the others, because some of the others are a little bit more sexy, a little bit more glamorous. But the Promontory is the workhorse and the base from which we do all of our cheeses. So let's go ahead and taste some Promontory.
Cheese. So I got all the cheeses all lined up. And so the first cheese is obviously it's going to be Promontory. And a nice little healthy bite here. So tell us a little bit about the mixture, the milk and that, its flavor characteristics.
So one of the unique things about our cheese is we have our main, what they call a lactobacillus bacteria, which is our acid producing bacteria. And the main reason, as I mentioned earlier, the main reason for that bacteria is to eat lactose or sugars, convert it to lactic acid. The lactic acid helps in the aging, the flavoring, everything to do with cheese, that process. We actually do have two adjunct cultures that add flavor. They're different bacterias, and they add different flavors to the cheese. One of the characteristics of our cheese that people really like is it has a little bit of a sweetness to it. This bacteria is kind of a Helveticus, is the name of the bacteria, and it's somewhat indicative of American Irish style cheddars. If you were to have that in London, for instance, people may not like it as much, but us Americans seem to really like the sweetness of a cheddar.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about the cheddars themselves is that they do pair up very well. I like to add a little bit of spiciness to it. So the chorizo, salami, and I have some jalapeno mustard seeds that are, pretty much, a nice little balance between that too.
Good. But it's really interesting. The different times of the year will end up with different milk. The components in the milk, the proteins and the cream or the fat will change. And it's really, we change our, what we're doing based on the time of the year. Right now we're coming into, it's called a freshening season, or the spring flush, they call it, the dairies. So we're ending up with large quantities of milk, but when the fluid goes up a lot, the components go down a little bit. So our cheeses in the summer are a little bit drier than our cheeses in the fall and winter. And so we're making a lot of, because we make multiple cheeses, different cheeses like different types of milk fat. And so we're making a whole lot of Teahive, for instance, right now. Teahive does not like a lot of fat as compared to like Barely Buzzed. She'll take all the fat we want to throw at her. So we're making a lot of Teahive right now.
All right.
So Barely Buzzed is absolutely the cheese that put us on the map. So after having made cheese for about, we started in September of 2005. It was like February, and Tim and I were in the make room, and we were like, you know what? There's a lot of really nice white cheddars out there. Why don't we do something that's a little bit crazy? You guys all know the Vella Dry Jack cheese that Ig Vella made years and years and years ago, back in the 40s. But he rubbed some cocoa on cheese and some pepper, and we thought, you know what? We can do that. And Tim, my partner's brother, is a coffee roaster down in Grand Junction, Colorado. And we had a bag of coffee laying around, and we figured, you know, you put cream in coffee, why not put coffee on cream? And we did, and we tasted it. We just made 2 little 3-pound wheels. This was in February. And then come, you know, August, it was the American Cheese Society was in Portland that year. And we grabbed we had a little family party, tasted the Barely Buzzed, and said, oh my gosh, this is really amazing. So we took it up to Portland, and we were passing it around with a couple of our peers up there. And one of them was from Central Market down in Texas. He tasted the cheese, Edouard Damez, and he loved it. He bought it on the spot, and we made him some cheese for a holiday season. And so Barely Buzzed was born. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's, you know, for pairing wise, you know, I remember that I was down at Uinta's Brewing, and was doing an event and preparing, and using a black lager has been one of my favorites. And you know, it was an inspiration to one of the beers that I did. I just love the richness that you can get out of here. I mean, even with stouts, when you think of that, there's some coffee stouts out there that this really does work very well with. And what's surprising is with the tanginess on there, that pretty much goes away and brings out more of the butter. So you get this kind of like buttery cream coffee. You know, that's pretty amazing.
That cheese is really, I mean, I just got a call from our good friend, the grilled cheese truck in Washington, D.C. just last week. He says, you know what? It's my #1 selling grilled cheese on the truck, and has been for about 13 years. I mean, it's great on a grilled cheese. It's great with fruit. It's insanely good with a medium red wine, brown beers, like you said. It's just a very versatile cheese. And one of the things that's unique about it is if you bring it to a party, people will, at first, they'll kind of raise an eyelid, like, no, I don't have things on my cheese. I just want the cheese. And I've told you many times, Michael, but we were at the Fancy Food Show in San Francisco, and we were waiting for a cab, and we ended up talking to this gentleman that had a big Swiss cross on his name badge, and we talked about what we both did. And he says, oh, you guys, what do you do? And I said, well, we make this crazy cheese with coffee on it. And he said, well, I know this cheese. I was in New York last year at the Fancy Food Show. And he said, I was at dinner, and out came your cheese on the cheese plate. And he said he kind of went into a tirade with his buddy saying, these stinking Americans think they can do anything they want with this cheese. And my Siri just kicked in. And his buddy said, you know what, dude, shut up. It wouldn't be on the cheese plate if it was no good. And so he tasted it, and he's like, he said, these brilliant Americans are getting away with things that they would be lynched for in Switzerland by putting coffee on cheese. But you know what? It tastes good. It pairs well. It's fun. It's unique. And it's almost a conversation piece. So Barely Buzzed has been just a highlight of Beehive cheese, and it's really put us on the map.
Yeah.
So Red Butte Hatch chili, in the last year and a half since we've introduced it, has become about our #2 selling cheese. It's such a good cheese. Red Butte is a garden at the University of Utah down in Salt Lake. and we donate 3% of the sales of this cheese to the garden. And the fun thing about this cheese is it's a New Mexico hatch chili. And so some people don't like the heat of chilies, but if you've had a New Mexico hatch chili, you'll know it's sweet and it's not hot, but it has tremendous flavor. And then, so we'll put the hatch chilies, fresh hatch chilies, in the paste of the cheese. That's unique because we don't do that with most of our cheeses. It's really just on the outside. But then we'll take the dried, ground hatch chilies and we will put those on the outside of the cheese. So not only do you get the fresh, green, wonderful chilies in the paste of the cheese, but you get the dried, roasted, kind of smoky flavor on the outside. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch, but really a great cheese.
It is an interesting combination of flavors because there is a little heat in there when you hit one of the peppers. But on the outside with the rub, it's got a sweetness to it that really balances out the buttery flavors of the cheese. I think it's really unique. I did some tacos the other night and grated it for the cheese for that, and it makes I think a big difference in the flavor of the cheese or the flavor of the tacos. One of the advantages that we have is that we can take one recipe and we can use different cheeses for it and actually create a lot of different flavor profiles. So it's kind of fun having that cheese, having a different cheese, using something a little milder, something a little spicier, all the way through. So it gives us a lot more choices just by adding a great cheese like yours.
I agree. It's really great in an omelet. It's just a fun cheese. I really like that cheese. Well, and like Michael, Peg Smith with Cowgirl Creamery, she's a great chef. Excuse me. And she taught me once, she says, I never just use one cheese in pretty much anything, a grilled cheese or an omelet or anything else. So she will combine different cheeses to get different flavors. So I would recommend that highly as well.
All right.
So this cheese, the history behind it is John Antonelli from Antonelli's Cheese Shop in Austin. Many of you know him. He was the president of ACS 2 years ago. But he gave us a call one afternoon. He said, I've got these guys from Basil, Hayden, and they want to do a collaborative effort with a cheesemaker. And I thought of you guys. We got a hold of them. They sent us a bottle of whiskey. We actually bought a bottle of whiskey. We started playing with it. But this cheese is a wash. So we'll take the cheese, we'll wash it with it on the outside. And Basil Hayden has been around a long time, and it is the sweetness of the whiskey and the sweetness of the cheese and the fattiness of the cheese. It's pretty special. We love this cheese. It's really a great cheese.
I've been a big fan of bean products for a long time. When I was up with Alaska Distributors, the small batch bourbon collection was one of our main lines. So for me, I've always gone more or less the Knob Creek. It's been more my favorite, and so I was actually unsuccessful in being able to get a little of the Basil Hayden today this week. So I'm going to have to just learn to live with a little Knob Creek in my old fashioned. So having a cheese, with a spirit. A lot of times the alcohol can be a real predominant part, but what happens is you pick up a lot of vanilla out of the butter flavors.
Yep, I agree. And another, I mean, I'm not trying to drop names or anything, but Mary Quick, who makes one of the world-renowned cheddars in England, she was at American Cheese Society as a judge a few years back, and she said, Pat, the thing that I love about your cheeses is I'm buying cheese, and what you do, you always have a balance in your cheese. People are not buying a bottle of Basil, Hayden, they're buying cheese. And oh, and by the way, it has an amazing, beautiful complement to the cheese. It's not trying to hide anything. It's not overpowering. It's just a complement to the cheese. So that's what I love about Basil, Hayden, and the Pour Me a Slice.
You know, with all the choices that you have, a lot of people do the beer. There's a wine pairing on there, and you know, like Merlots and other things. And to have something unique like this is really kind of fun to, you know, have at a party. I brought it out a couple times. Friends of mine that are huge bourbon fans, and you know, we get to, you know, play a lot with that. And you know, I think any bourbon actually, you know, in like any port in a storm, works really well with it. You know, so but the Basil Hayden is a little more sipping, you know, but you know, works pretty well either way.
And you know, Basil Hayden, we've had multiple conversations with them, and what a great partner they've been. But you know what? Their goal is to cross-pollinate with the cheese world. They're trying to get these younger kids to bring a bottle of bourbon to the party instead of a, you know, beer and wine. And I think they're having some real success. It's a beautiful pairing.
I agree. I agree. All right. Last and final cheese.
So Teahive, kind of from your neck of the woods in citrus country, but we love this cheese because it's pretty amazing. If you were to taste the Barely Buzzed side by side with the Teahive, you're going to get out of the Barely Buzzed, you're going to get some roasted, very almost a meaty characteristic to it, very robust with lots of lingering flavors. If you taste Teahive side by side with it, you're going to end up with a very bright, clean finish to the Teahive. The bergamot in the Earl Grey tea is so clean and so citrusy that this cheese with anything citrus is really amazing. We have a gal that works for us that cooks, and she does a cheesecake with this in the crust. And with this little citrus of the cheesecake and the citrus of the Earl Grey, it's pretty special. Very clean, bright finish.
I see what you mean. There is a really nice citrus there.
It's almost like a pellet cleanser. It just cleans everything up. It's really nice with bubbles. It's really great with, like I said, citrusy fruits.
Yeah, you know, with the different flavors, again, using that in a recipe, you're going to get a lot more tanginess out of this. Won't be nearly as buttery, which is not a bad thing. It's not saying that that there's something wrong, that every cheddar has to be having a tremendous amount of butter to it. I think it's really nice that you have something that goes in this direction. You know, you want a recipe that you want it to go a little bit more tangy. I think that this would be a great way to be able to go there. And the balance of this flavor does really well. You know, and I think, you know, even with the mustard seed, they go really well. So, you know, the crackers, I get a nice olive oil and sea salt from Rustic Bakery. So, you know, just a nice little snacking way of being able to put these together. Pat, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out coming today. It's always a pleasure to be able to see you. You know, I know that we can't get together currently, but this made a really nice, fun way of being able to kind of connect a little bit. it was great seeing the farm. A lot of times we think about the cheese making that you do, but when you make cheese, you're also supporting a dairy. You're supporting the families, and so it's not just your cheese making; it's also everything that goes into it. And we greatly appreciate all that you do. And again, congratulations on your 15 years, and hopefully it'll just continue going. We'll get through this, and just love you, man. So hopefully we'll be together sometime soon.
We will, and thank you for everybody that tuned in. And Michael, you're awesome. Have a great day.
All right, you too. You take care.
You.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.